this Torah portion is about Nadab and Abihu. We've all had the question of like what is going on with them. So this is really interesting. If you go back to Exodus 24, it's the first mention of the two brothers of Aaron, and I'm just going to read it because I'm going to let y'all kind of pick it out as we go. And I won't read Leviticus, but you're going to see all these things: the peace offering, the blood sprinkling, the eating of sacrifices, 7 days, Elohim's glory, the devouring fire. All of it comes out through Leviticus too. So all right, this is Exodus 24. And to Moshe he said, "Go up to Yah, you, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 elders of Israel." So this is the first mention of the brothers, and the last until the next time we read about them. "And you shall prostrate yourselves from a distance, and Moshe alone shall approach Yah, but they shall not approach, and the people shall go up with him. Moshe came and told the people all the words of Yah and all the ordinances, and the entire people responded with one voice, and they said, 'All the words that Yah has spoken we will do.' And Moshe wrote the words of Yah. He arose early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountains and 12 pillars for the 12 tribes of Israel. He sent the youths of the children of Israel, and they brought up elevation offerings, and they slaughtered bulls to Yah as feast offerings to Yah. Moshe took half the blood of the peace." So this is the peace offering. The first thing we see, we're going to see it in Leviticus 2. "Moshe took half the blood and placed it in basins, and half the blood and threw it on the altar." So this is the first time we've ever seen Moshe do a sacrifice, or we see him do one more before this. So I think these are the only two places that I can find that Moshe ever does sacrifices himself. Normally this is left for the Kohanim, the sons of Aaron are the ones that do it. And in this one it has the youth, which is interesting. If anybody knows what that's talking about, he says he sent the youths of the children of Israel, and they brought elevation offerings. But then Moshe does a sacrifice, and he sprinkles the blood. You'll see here. And then when we read Leviticus in a little bit, you'll see it in 8:18. And he took the book of the covenant and read it in the earshot of the people, and they said, "Everything that Yah has spoken, we will do and obey." So here's the covenant being promised. All the people say, everything that Yah is saying, we will do. And Moshe took the blood and threw it upon the people, which is weird, but I mean, this is where like covenants and blood like become a thing here. Like this is where it starts, that like breaking of the covenant should remind you of death, and this is like, this is the covenant being made and the reminder of, why we need sacrifices now. "Behold, the blood of the covenant that Yah sealed with you concerning all these matters. Moshe, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, the 70 elders of Israel, ascended, and they saw the Elohim of Israel, so they saw the Elohim of Israel, and under his feet was the likeness of sapphire brickwork, and it was like the essence of the heavenly impurity. Against the great men of the children of Israel, he did not stretch out his hand. They gazed at Elohim, yet they ate and drank." So they see Elohim in the heavens, and they're eating sacrifices. So we have a peace offering, blood sprinkling. They eat the sacrifices of it after they behold. I mean, it says no man's beheld Elohim, but Nadab and Abihu, these two sons were called with the 70 elders to go up, and they got to see at least his feet, from what it sounds like, and the sapphire floor under it, and they got to behold this aspect of Yah that that had to be an amazing moment for them. And All right, and they ate and drank. And Yah said to Moshe, ascend to me to the mountain and remain there, and I shall give you the stone tablets and the teaching and the commandments that I have written to teach them. Moshe stood up with Yehoshua, his servant, and Moshe ascended the mountain of Elohim. And the elders, he said, wait for us until we return to you. Behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has a grievance should approach them. So just Moshe and Yehoshua went up, ascended beyond the cloud, and went to the presence of Elohim. And everybody else had to stay there. And Aaron and Hur were put in charge. And Moshe ascended the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. The glory of Yah rested upon the Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for a 6-day period. He called to them on the 7th day. So you see the 7th day, it'll come up in this Torah portion when we read it. And the reason I'm saying this is like all these things, like this has to be, what's happening here has to be the answer for what they're about to do in the Torah portion today. And so I'm just going to, this is just to give you all this going into it so you can be thinking about this. And they stayed, Moshe, on the 7th day from the midst of the cloud. He appeared, the appearance of the glory of Yah was like a consuming fire on the mountaintop. Two other things, the glory of Yah and a consuming fire. Both of them are going to come out today in Leviticus. And before the eyes of the children of Israel, Moshe arrived in the midst of the cloud and ascended the mountain. And Moshe was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. That's the end of 24, but I'm going to read the first sentence of the next one. And Yah spoke to Moshe, speak to the children of Israel, and let them take for me a portion from every man whose heart motivates him. You shall take my portion. So that word motivate is willingness. It's the same word as Nadab. So whoever is willing, like, that's his name. Nadab, Nadab, and the free will offering is also called a nadiva. Like there's rules that go along with it. So the offering, the first rule is you have to be offering it willingly. It has to be without compulsion, and it has to be with a pure heart. So there's something here that Nadab and Abihu, when they go to offer this offering, was their flaw, because that's literally his name, is this willingness. And you see it, you're going to see it come out. They're the only two. They jumped the gun. They can't wait to go, and whatever happened here, something they saw or did was the reason they decided, like, we're going to go into the Holy of Holies and offer. Yeah, well, I mean, so maybe it was compulsiveness, or maybe their hearts weren't pure and they just wanted, to experience something that they didn't get to the first time or whatever. But there's something here in this that it is. And then Abihu, his name's unusual too. My father is he. So willingness, my father is he. And then the story after this gets even weirder with Aaron having to, like, tell Moshe, like, about the offerings, but we'll get there in a minute. But I just wanted to read that so you can kind of have before we go into this reading, like, this is the only other story about these two sons. It's the only two times that Moshe does sacrifices. So in Leviticus 8, this is the only other time in all of Scripture you're going to see Moshe give a sacrifice, is here and in Leviticus 8. He never ever does it in any other place in Scripture. So it's trying to tell us that these two stories are connected.
Okay. All right, let's go down to chapter 9.
Vayikra 9, verse 1. And on the 8th day it came to be that Moshe called Aharon and his sons and the elders of Israel. And he said to Aharon, take for yourself a young bull as a sin offering and a ram as an ascending offering, a perfect one, and bring them before Yah. And speak to the children of Israel, saying, take a male goat as a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both a year-old, perfect ones, as an ascending offering, and a bull and a ram as a peace offering to slaughter before Yah, and a grain offering with mixed oil, for today Yah shall appear to you. And they took what Moshe commanded before the tent of appointment, and all the congregation drew near and stood before Yah. And Moshe said, This is the word which Yah commanded you to do, so that the esteem of Yah appears to you.
Stop a minute. Okay, let's go back to before the end of Exodus. Moshe set up the tabernacle for 7 days. He set it up every day. They did an offering, and they took it down. Set it up next day, did an offering, took it down. Every day of the 7 days.
Can you do that on the Sabbath too?
The temple works 7 days a week. Okay, but you're not allowed to make personal offerings on Sabbath. But there are certain offerings that have to be made on the Sabbath.
You had to work to put it up, right?
Well, yes. Well, when they were traveling. But, okay, so anytime it's got something to do with the temple, you're talking about the setting up part. Yes. Once the temple's set up, well, how do I explain this? Whatever Yah says has to be done, has to be done. But if he didn't specifically say do it, then we wouldn't do it on that day. You just make the specific offerings for that day. But every day they would set it up, take it down, set it up, make an offering, take it down. Then on the 8th day, they did the same thing. They set it up, made an offering, and this time Yah sends fire down from heaven. And that's where we're getting into the first temple from the time the Mishkan was set up in the wilderness all the way up to the end of King Solomon's temple, King Shlomo's temple. You had the fire from Elohim. You didn't have the fire from Elohim in the second temple. And from when Nehemiah and Ezra, when they came back from the Babylonian exile, there was never the glory of God or the fire, the holy fire in the second temple. But in the first one, it was. The fire was never allowed to go out, and that fire burned continually. Now, that's the same thing that rabbis call Shemitah too. When one rabbi trains his students, and then he blesses them, and then they go out and start training students. And it's kind of weird, but they do the same thing. Everybody does this. Look at black belts. You got black belts that said, I trained under this guy, or I trained under this guy, and then they get their black belt. It's the exact same thing. So if you train under somebody nobody knows about, you don't get that many students, but you train under this guy over here that everybody knows about, you get all these students. The same thing with the rabbis. But they pass that on down and on down and on down. And that's why, but anyway. Okay, so the 8th day, he sets up the tabernacle, makes an offering, and this time Yah sends fire down from heaven. That was the end of Exodus. Now we're on the 8th day. At the beginning of Leviticus, we talked about the sacrifices, and now we're going in specifically, we're going to finish out that day when the fire came down from heaven. But it's very important because you guys remember the story, I think it was in Haggai, God told the prophet, said, how many of you remember the first temple? And a few of the old guys said, we remember it. And said, this is nothing like the first temple. But God said, the glory of the latter temple will be greater than the first temple. They thought he was talking about the temple they were building then. He wasn't. He wasn't talking about that temple. And the way it's worded, though, that would give them encouragement because they thought, oh, okay, so this is going to be someday be glorious as much as Solomon's temple. But it never was. And then it was destroyed. And so then we got to figure out what he's talking about. The glory of the latter temple will be greater than the first one. That's Ezekiel's temple. That ain't even the one we're fixing to start. The sacrificial system is going to start next. But regardless. Okay, so now let's go on down to
Verse 7.
Yeah.
And Moshe said to Aharon, go to the slaughter place and prepare your sin offering and your ascending offering and make atonement for yourself and for the people. And make the offering of the people and make atonement for them, as Yah has commanded. So Aharon came near to the slaughter place and slew the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. And the sons of Aharon brought the blood to him, and he dipped his fingers in the blood, and put it on the horns of the slaughter place, and poured the blood at the base of the slaughter place. And the fat and the kidneys and the appendages of the liver of the sin offering he burned on the slaughter place, as Yah had commanded Moshe. And the flesh and the skin he burned with fire outside the camp. And he slew the ascending offering, and the sons of Aharon presented to him the blood, which he sprinkled on the slaughter place all around. And they presented the ascending offering to him with its pieces and head, and he burned them on the slaughter place. And he washed the entrails and the legs, and burned them with the ascending offering on the slaughter place. And he brought the people's offering and took the goat, which was the sin offering for the people, and slew it and made it a sin offering, like the first one.
Stop for a second. Can y'all hear that?
Yeah. What is that?
I don't know.
I hear it all the time. I've tried.
You've never heard it.
My bionic ears are picking up everything.
Always heard it. I've never known what it
I've taken it off the wall and tried to make it stop, but it's powered into the main system.
Yeah, it's like a timer.
Okay, I was fixing to.
We've always heard it, Randy.
Okay.
I always thought that it was the lights in here until I saw the light switches over there.
I was afraid my Wi-Fi ears are picking up the neighbors or something.
Wi-Fi ears.
Okay.
We're thankful you can hear, Randy. Verse 16, and he brought the ascending offering and made it according to the right ruling. He also brought the grain offering and filled his hand with it, and burned it on the slaughter place beside the ascending offering of the morning. And he slew the bull and the ram as a slaughter of peace offerings, which were for the people. And Aharon's son presented to him the blood, which he sprinkled on the slaughter place all around. And the fat from the bull and the ram, the fat tail, and the coverings, and the kidneys, and the appendages on the liver. And they placed the fat on the breasts, and he burned the fat on the slaughter place. But the breasts and the right thigh Aharon waved as a wave offering before Yah, as Moshe had commanded. Aharon then lifted up his hand toward the people and blessed them, and came down from making the sin offering, and the ascending offering, and the peace offerings. And Moshe and Aharon went into the tent of appointment, and came out, and he blessed the people. And the esteem of Yah appeared to all the people. And fire came out from before Yah, and consumed the ascending offering, and the fat on the slaughter place. And all the people saw, and cried aloud, and fell on their faces.
Okay. We came out of Egypt in 2448 from Adam. It was the 15th of Aviv. 1 year later, we started building the sacrificial system all here somewhere around Yom Kippur after Sukkot probably. And then that winter, we built everything for the Mishkan. And then we set it up 7 days before Aviv. And so the year 2449, the sacrificial system started right here on the 1st of Aviv for the people, for everybody. 7 days before that, he set it up, took it down, set it up, took it down. Now, earlier we were talking about, I was showing you the stuff about Samson and the prime ministers. I forgot to tell you that one of the things I skipped, we started running out of time, was salvation immediately after Dan, when Jacob is blessing his children, Dan, immediately he says, I have waited for your salvation, O Lord. And Samson was a Danite. And immediately after Samson, you have salvation. And so that's Yeshua. And so it's all right there in that story. And I didn't even get to that part. But the other part I left out that we didn't talk about, we did last week, we got those 2 red heifers that got to be used up before they turned 3 years old. Now, they don't have to start the sacrificial system immediately, but they do have to burn those red heifers to get the ashes for the sacrificial system. Otherwise, they're going to be disqualified probably by October. So I'm not saying the sacrifices will start, but it's looking like there's a good chance. Now, here's the thing. Judaism has 3 dates for the sacrifices starting on. Ninth of Av. Why the 9th of Av? Because that's when both temples were destroyed. The other one is Yom Kippur. Many of the rabbis think that the sacrifices would start on Yom Kippur. And the other one is Pesach, like it did at the beginning. This first one here started on Aviv 1. 15 days later was the first Pesach in the wilderness. But we came out. We actually, just a few days short of a full year, 15 days short of a full year, the sacrificial system was set up and ready to go. I always have to make sure you understand the time frame so you know what's going on. Okay, let's get down to chapter 10. Who's reading?
I'm going to read.
Okay.
But Nadab and Abihu, sons of Aaron, each took his censer, put fire in it, laid incense on it, and offered unauthorized fire before Adonai, something he had not ordered them to do. At this, fire came forth from the presence of Adonai and consumed them, so that they died in the presence of Adonai. Moshe said to Aaron, "This is what Adonai said. Through those who are near me I will be consecrated, and before all the people I will be glorified." Aaron kept silent. Moshe called Mishael and Elzavan, sons of Uzziel, Aaron's uncle, and told them, "Come here and carry your cousins away in front of the sanctuary to a place outside the camp." They approached and carried them in their tunics out of the camp as Moshe had said. Then Moshe told Aaron and his sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, "Don't unbind your hair or tear your clothes in mourning so that you won't die and so that Adonai won't be angry with the entire community. Rather, let your kinsmen, the whole house of Israel, mourn because of the destruction Adonai brought about with his fire. Moreover, don't leave the entrance to the tent of meeting or you will die because Adonai's anointing oil is on you." Adonai said to Aaron, "Don't drink any wine."
I was just saying that sounds important.
Yeah. "Don't drink any wine or other intoxicating liquor, neither you nor your sons with you, when you enter the tent of meeting, so that you will not die. This is to be a permanent regulation throughout all your generations, so that you will distinguish between the holy and the common, and between the unclean and the clean, and so that you will teach the people of Israel all the laws Adonai has told them through Moshe."
Wait, stop a minute.
Should we repeat that?
Okay, so here's the deal. We got 4 sons of Aaron, okay? Now, this is the priesthood. 50% of them are wiped away immediately. So at the very beginning, when we were traveling in the wilderness, remember he said Kohath can carry the ark. Kohath can carry the menorah. Aaron only had 2 sons left, and probably Pentecost. Pentecost was probably a youngster at that point, Phineas. And so we don't really know how old he was at that point, but Aaron only had 2 sons left. The other 2 were struck dead. 50% of the priesthood died immediately. You ever really thought about that? 50% of the priesthood. Now, let's look at it from a different angle. So we're told, don't drink anything intoxicating. The priests, when they're allowed to work, I didn't know this, but I was listening to somebody the other day at the Temple Institute, I believe, and they were talking about the priests that are trained today. There are many of them that already know the course they're supposed to be working on, and they don't drink during that week of their course just in case they're called up to work. They don't never know when exactly it's going to be. And I thought, that's amazing. There was also a young priest, a young kid, and Beth showed me this one. This young man was shown the red heifer, and he's been training on the red heifer. And if he gets to do the sacrifice, he's never been in a hospital, he's never been in a graveyard, never touched a grave, never been on anything to make him unclean, then they're getting things ready for the burning of the red heifer. Which call him a Cohen too. He is a Cohen. Yes. Now, so we got 50% of the priesthood. But some of the things that, what did he do wrong? He offered strange incense. But here it says not to be intoxicated. There are other places it says not to go into the Holy of Holies, but only on Yom Kippur. Sherry? Exactly.
We're supposed to know the other party and what they love, and we give them what they want, not what we want to give.
That's a good point.
Now, we know that they had gone up to the middle ground. They did not get to go up. So, again, Johnny's correct. In their thinking, they were like, oh, we just want to go higher. We want to be closer. But we get to be as close as y'all want us to be. It's not our decision.
And it may be for our safety.
Well, what did the Kohath do? They decided they wanted to be more. They
Yeah.
wanted to be closer. And see, it's the same problem. In their zeal, they'll say, well, I love God. But really, when you get down to it, it's about them.
Yeah.
I think too, even like in that, like whosoever is to bring a willful offering, and Nadab, even that had a stopping place where it's like,
Where God said that's it.
right, that's enough. Like, don't bring any more. And I think it's the same idea we should be thinking right now go, you're right, that extra step, that it was out of step with what Yah wanted and how to love him correctly.
So, with that being said, there's a difference between safeguard and adding to the Torah. Now, we can add to the Torah, which we're adding to, but a safeguard is a little bit different. You know, we can make safeguards, or we can't, but some of them can. And they make safeguards to keep you from getting close to breaking the Torah. But look at what we're doing here. He says, first of all, what is the job of the priesthood? To teach between clean and unclean. Why specifically clean and unclean? Because that'll get you killed going to the temple. That won't affect you at home. But going to the temple, it'll get you killed. You don't go to the temple in an unclean manner.
And that's coming close. Going to the temple is coming close. We're ascending in our closeness to him.
Exactly.
Each ascending in closeness to him, we have to see what it is he wants us to do.
Exactly.
It's not about us. It's
Yeah.
about him.
Exactly. And we can't switch things. Now, it's important. It's like Beth's always joking with me. She said, you like to eat the same places over, you never try anything new. Well, in a way, God is the same way. No. He knows what he likes. He knows the flavor he wants. Don't change his flavor.
Oh, I know my hair blew back. My hair blew back.
I like the way I smooth that over. Anyway, so, but seriously though, in that context, God says, this is the way I want it done. Don't tell me the way you want to do it for me. And that's the best part. You know, if you love somebody, like Sherry said, you want to make them happy. You don't want to do it to make yourself happy. You want to do it to make them happy.
I had a conversation with one of my, I had a conversation with one of my Christian buddies, and it was along that lines. I was like, over time, people have been listening to Hasatan saying half God really said, and they're just listening to men. They're not actually studying it out and trying to figure out, well, what does y'all actually want? What does
Exactly.
he want us to do? And I was trying to convince him about how, not to eat bacon. He was like, oh, but I love it too much. I said, okay, well, you had just told me a few minutes ago about how that people have been dabbling in sin, this and that and this and that. I said, but here you are justifying your bacon.
Exactly. Sherry.
This is kind of a little tying it off that, but I've been learning so much this last couple of weeks with my head's almost swimming with it. But when you go all the way back to the garden, and I don't know if anybody listens to all of that, but I'm telling you, you should. It's amazing. And it's a rabbi, but he puts things down in a very understandable way. And I've never seen this before. But in the garden, when Abba said, all of this world is yours, all these animals are yours, this is yours. And the only thing he said that was his was one thing, just that tree. Well, what did man do? They stole from him.
Yeah.
Took, pierced the boundary, and took from him. Now, if you pay any attention, they never even repented, but how did Abba respond to that? He took an animal and slayed it. There's always a balance with God. When he put
Yeah.
the boundary up, and he said, this is for you, and this is for me, and this is a commandment, and this is. There is always a balance. Always
Exactly.
he brings it back into balance. And I have never seen that before. And it's the same thing with all of these stories. When we pierce the boundary, when we go beyond what he wants, there is a balancing response.
And he chose people. He chose Aaron. And here's the deal that even the rabbis make it clear. It's like, okay, so one of the rabbis, he was one of the great rabbis, and he went up to get a blessing for the priestly blessing. And one of the students said, but Rabbi, you should be doing the blessing. He said, no, the Aaron was called to do the blessing. I may know more than this guy. I may know this great rabbi, blah, 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 but he has the authority. I don't. And so, we all have to understand it has nothing to do with righteousness sometimes. It has nothing to do with, it's his order. He set up the order, and, that's a hard part for somebody to sit back and say, okay, I should be leading this congregation instead of this guy. He's a hillbilly, don't know what he's doing, blah, blah, blah. And by all means, take over. I don't care. But But my point is that sometimes God sets up order, and we try to go around that order. Same thing with the nation of Israel. And so when he set up an order, we follow that order, and just that's the end of it. Exactly. Well, the reason I brought that up with me is I had this guy one time came in, and he told me straight out. He said, if I was leading this congregation, I could double the number in a heartbeat. And I was like, and nobody wanted him to lead it. And I was like, dude, and we had 4 elders at the beginning. I didn't even consider myself an elder. We had 4 men that were elders, and they all called me the head elder. I was like, wait, whoa, no, I'm just kind of the spiritual leader here. But my point was is that they kind of chose me to do that. You're doing this, you do that. And our heart is, this has been our heart from day one anyways. But we've had people come in and literally, well, I hate to use that for an example, but seriously, I've had people tell me, so I could double this congregation in a heartbeat. And I'm like, yeah, but the way you're going is not the direction we want to go. We don't care about numbers. We care about, well, we want to worship God the way we want to worship him, and that's the end of it. Anyway. Exactly.
They're focusing on trying to please other people and instead of pleasing him.
The story reminds me too of the wedding in Revelation where the one person shows up in the wrong garments and gets thrown out, because they tried to come. I don't know, like that story always makes me think like all these people that try to open their chakras or use DMT to see God or these things, like they may do it, but they're showing up in the wrong garments. They're not approaching him in a way that he wants you to. Like there's a process, and he's laying it out real clearly, so you can't just show up however you want.
And it may not be meeting the right God.
Right, or even if they are though, like if you were Elohim and somebody just popped up in your sanctuary, you'd be pissed. Like you can't, like I want you here, but this isn't the way you get here. Yeah.
Moshe. Specifically, most of them were David's Psalms, the Hallels.
So he was saying,
but they came later, though.
right,
They did come later.
right, because he was talking about so what about all these music that's pop out the whole world? You think you'll be able to sing this type of music in the temple? Or and that made me think. I was like, wow.
That's a good question. Think about this for a second. Things vary. We got the church world that does Amazing Grace, blah, 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 blah. But from their heart, you got to admit, they truly mean it from their heart. One of the young men that studied with me that said something a long time ago that made me really think. He said the problem with the church world was they're not even keeping the Torah that they understood. They've gotten so liberal, they're not even doing now. Back when they were keeping the Torah, they weren't keeping Torah, but they were doing what they understood of the law. And so they were sincere about it. Now they're not. Because back then, they kept Sunday as Sabbath. I know it's wrong, but at the same time, if you worked on a Sunday in some of these small towns, the people would be like, you're supposed to be, it was horrible. And nowadays, nobody cares.
New laws about it.
So what I'm trying to say,
Yeah. And back to Nadab and
yeah.
your zeal, and that
Exactly. So music. Okay, so at the beginning, we have Mika Mocha, when they crossed the Sea of Reeds, and a few of the things that Moses wrote, but then David comes along with harps, and he's singing. He's like the Levites. He's leading these beautiful songs, and then that becomes part of the simple temple worship service. Now, I don't have a problem with any of that. I don't even have a problem with what we're doing with guitars and stuff like that, as long as the certain parts are certain ways. You know, like the offerings and stuff had to be done a certain way. And then after that, you could dance and sing around, go outside the temple, just sing all day long and dance before God. I don't have a problem with that. I think sometimes we try to make it, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think that we got to look at music, we got to look at the intent. Now, there's some music definitely not praising God. You got some of these Christian rock groups, that's not. No. But I will say this, though. Some people got a chip on their shoulder about rock and roll. When I started playing the guitar, I thought I was country music until I started playing guitar, and I was like, no, I'm a rocker. And so, but my songs are all about praising God. I mean, I love God, but they're rock and roll. I just hate to say it. So you can't just automatically assume because the rhythm is rock and roll that it's bad. It's not. It's the words of the rhythm that makes it right or wrong.
Rock and roll music deters snakes. I'm serious as a heart attack. Look it up. It's something about the frequency.
I had a dream about it.
Ray had a dream about it. That's why I looked it up.
Okay.
Rock and roll
But
music
even if I have worship music that I listen to and I found out like the person is now like a proven LGBTQ or
I agree.
like they're getting weird, like I'll delete them out of my playlist and never listen to it again because
I agree.
Bethel and all those churches that just have these, some great beautiful songs, but you find out the things that they approve of, like then I think that can't be a president or a good, savor in Yah's nose or ears when he hears that. And the
I can
people
agree with
that
that.
are doing it.
I can agree with that. But what I am saying, though, is there's not just one style of music that's praise and worship. There are several different styles. And the words is what matters. It's not, anyway. Because
The internet is evil, but the internet could be used for good, and it is often used for good.
okay, and something I noticed in Kenya, this blew me away. If you really research music, most music started in praise and worship and stuff like that, and then it evolved outside that. But in Kenya, I can tell you exactly where rap music came from. In Kenya, they were singing these songs, but they were repeating it, sing it and repeat it, sing it and repeat it. And I was like, it was a different style I wasn't used to, but that's what they grew up on. They didn't have books, so one guy would start off. He'd sing a verse, and then everybody would repeat that verse. Then he'd sing another verse, and everybody would repeat that verse. And you realize that's kind of the style of, that rappy style and blah, 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 but it wasn't bad. I heard them singing words to one song. I was like, I know that rhythm. And then it was like Amazing Grace. No, it wasn't Amazing Grace, but it's one of those like that. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool because they're doing it in Swahili language. I know the rhythm, and I figured out what they were doing. So, okay, let's get on down. Where we at? Anybody know?
Verse 12.
Oh, one more thing. What all did they do wrong? We know that not to be drinking. Let's see, drinking. Strange incense, for sure.
They let the fire go out, and then brought strange fire, so that's two.
Okay, well, strange fire. Drinking. And there's one more that we're going to find out a little bit later. What is that? Don't go into the Holy of Holies but one day a year. So there is an idea that maybe they went into the Holy of Holies. Anyways, there's a lot more than we're getting the summary to right here. He's going to tell us a little bit, but he's not going in depth. And then later on, they're going to talk more and more about it. So we know from Leviticus 16, there's only one day a year that we go in that the Kohen Gadol goes into the Holy of Holies. And these guys weren't Kohen Gadol. Aaron was.
They were just Cohens, right?
They were just Cohen. And again, maybe thought that they wanted to lift themselves up and do even more, but they weren't supposed to do more.
I think they wanted to finish what they started experiencing on the mountain when they saw Elohim and they were in his presence, and they were told to wait there 7 days, and only Moshe and Yehoshua got to go. Like, I think that they just couldn't stop thinking about that unbelievable experience, and they thought that now they understood how to enter into it or something. You know, I think maybe it was just I think it's just really what had to happen. I don't know. I think it comes out a little bit in the next story about Aaron and the sacrifice.
Now, the biggest lesson we can learn from this, to whom much is given, much is expected. So, you know, always jokingly, but it's not a joke. It's kind of like joining the mafia. You know too much now, you can't quit. You can't go back out in the world because now you know too much. So, but that's truth. I mean, Nadab and Abihu. It's like you see some people that are held accountable for certain things they do and others aren't. And you're like, why aren't they held accountable? Because they knew better. These knew better. Those didn't have any idea what they're doing. And that's true. We see that over and over again. So the more you study, the more you're going to be held accountable to.
And the first story, too, it says that they had to wait 6 days, and on the 7th day, Moshe was called up into the mountain. This one's talking about the 8th day. So, like, it is kind of like, I think it's really talking about the preparation for all of y'all's people that are supposed to be a kingdom of priests, of how we need to be walking in the instructions by the 8th day to really be able to enter into his presence. Because, you know, if the 8th day is the removing of the curse and all that, then, like, we need to be walking in it perfectly, you know, and with understanding and truth, and that's why we got the millennial reign to learn it.
And that's the 7th day. That's what the 7th day does.
Yeah, we get the 7th day to learn it and perfect it, and then that 8th day, Yah's presence enters, and, you know, and then...
But there's something different about the 7th day. Moses don't bring us into the 7th day. He gets us up to the gate, but then Joshua brings us in. So we know that whole idea about being saved by the law. We're not saved by the law. We're saved, no, not saved by works. We're saved because of grace, and then we do the works to make him happy. So the Torah gets us up to the gate. Joshua brings us in, but the Torah is still in effect. We still keep Torah to the very best of our ability. But we got to keep it with love and compassion for one another. That's, I guess, the biggest part.
I think
Okay.
it's weird in this story, too, that when Aaron goes in, lights it, comes back out, and the Shekinah glory doesn't come down then. It's not until Moshe and Aaron go in together and then come out and bless the people, then it comes down. So it's almost a picture of the brothers coming together and then exiting, blessing the people, and then the Shekinah comes. Like, I mean, in theory, it should have lit the first time when Aaron goes in, like, but it doesn't. So I think that's an unusual thing to think about.
Okay? Okay. Where we at? What verse?
Verse 12.
Okay.
Moshe said to Aaron and to Eleazar and Ithamar, his remaining sons, take the grain offering left from the offering for Adonai made by fire, and eat it without leaven next to the altar, because it is especially holy. Eat it in a holy place, because it is your and your sons' share of the offerings for Adonai made by fire. For this is what I have been ordered. The breast that was waved and the thigh that was raised you are to eat in a clean place. You, your sons, and your daughters with you, for these are given as you and your children share of the sacrifices of the peace offering presented by the people of Israel. They are to bring the raised thigh and the waved breast along with the offerings of fat made by fire, and wave it as a wave offering before Adonai, and then it will belong to you and your descendants with you as your perpetual share, as Adonai has ordered. Then Moshe carefully investigated what had happened to the goat of the sin offering and discovered that it had been burned up. He became angry with Eleazar and Ithamar, the remaining sons of Aaron, and asked, why didn't you eat the sin offering in the area of the sanctuary, since it is especially holy? He gave it to you to take away the guilt of the community, to make atonement for them before Adonai. Look, its blood wasn't brought into the sanctuary. You should have eaten it there in the sanctuary as I ordered. Aaron answered Moshe, even though they offered for their sin offering and burnt offering today, things like these have happened to me. If I had eaten the sin offering today, would it have pleased Adonai? On hearing this reply, Moshe was satisfied.
That's an interesting argument.
Well, it was supposed to be a Chakat offering, a sin offering that kind of closes the circle of, like, I think she mentioned there, but it's supposed to, like, close the loop of, like, we taken from Yah, eaten out of the garden, and accepted in place, we eat the sin on his behalf. Instead, they just let it burn up totally, and they turn it into a burnt offering, Olah. So, like and then Moshe is pissed that they didn't do it right, but it has to do with the story before. Like, it's because of what happened to Nadab and Abihu that they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's also interesting, you know, you're talking about bringing reconciliation to the garden, kind of. When Moses said, what
Relax.
happened to the goat offering? Where is it? What did you do with it? It says he diligently sought, or the direct translation is inquiring, he inquired. Those words are the very center of the Torah.
Derosh.
There's a different center in number in letters, but this is the center
Of the
in
words.
And I think it's very interesting that right at the dead center of the Torah, we find the act that was supposed to help reconcile us back to the garden, and even that did not go well.
Yeah.
So,
The words are Derosh. What verse is that in? Here it is. Darash. That is the center of the Torah for words. That is, and Moses inquired insistently about the he-goat of the sin offering. And that's the center of the Torah for words. The center of the Torah for letters is actually a Vav, is it not?
yeah, I think so.
I don't remember which that exactly.
But we're coming up on it soon, because I think it's right after,
Yeah,
I think it's in the next Torah portion, it was right after this center, if I remember correctly.
yeah.
I think it's in the next Torah portion.
Comments, questions? Now, a lot of these offerings, were inaugural offerings. In other words, like a one-time deal. And so some of this stuff was inaugural. Some of it was daily. And you asked the question.
Like the blood of the lamb on the doorpost at Passover.
Yeah. You asked the question earlier, did they set up the tabernacle on Shabbat? And yes, they did. Now, Numbers chapter 28 and 29, it gives us a list of offerings. It gives us every single day there's a morning offering and an afternoon. Every Shabbat, there's 2 additional lambs. Every Rosh Chodesh, there's more offerings. And those are all added on top of each other. And chapter 28 and 29 of Numbers gives us all those offerings. Those have to be done every single day regardless. But you can't make an offering at the temple if it's on Shabbat. I mean, you can't make an offering, it has to be eat, you know. So now with that being said, that's not exactly true. There is one offering that you have to make even if it falls on Shabbat. What is that? You can't make an offering on Shabbat except for one. And if it's a certain time of year and it falls on Shabbat, you have no choice. You have to make that on that day. Passover. Pesach. So, but you're not allowed to cook it. So if the 14th of Aviv is on Shabbat, you have to make it's time related. It has to be made on the 14th. But you're not allowed to cook it until after sundown. Now, if the 14th of Aviv falls on Friday, you have to make the offering and you have to make sure it's cooked before sundown because you can't cook on Shabbat. So, but those offerings are time related, so they have to be done specific times.
Is the Passover a Shlamim offering?
Shalomim, yes. It's a peace offering. But it's even more restrictive than your average Shalomim because a Shalomim you can eat one day and the next day. The Passover you can only eat it up to midnight. So it has more restrictions than just a normal Shalomim offering. But it has to be done in a specific amount of time. So let's say you went to the temple. This is important because let's say you go to the temple, you got a big group going with you. There are some offerings that I think even the nations can eat of. I'll have to go back and check that out. But there are some offerings that you have to be circumcised for, like a Passover. You have to be circumcised for. So if you were on a big tour for Passover, you went through the whole process of purification, and you had somebody with you that wasn't circumcised, and there are other things that he can enjoy, but he just couldn't eat the Passover offering. You understand that? We talked a little bit about it. There's a lot about the offerings I don't even know. I got to learn a lot about them. So, anyway. Okay, chapter 11. Who wants to read?
I'll read again from the code back.
Okay.
Vayikra 11, verse 1, And Yah spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, saying to them, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, These are the living creatures which you do eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Whatever has split hoof completely divided, chewing the cud among the beasts that you do eat. Only these you do not eat among those that chew the cud or those that have a split hoof. The camel, because it chews the cud but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the rabbit, because it chews the cud but it does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the hare, because it chews the cud but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the pig, though it has a split hoof completely divided, yet does not chew the cud, it is unclean to you. Their flesh you do not eat, and their carcasses you do not touch. They are unclean to you. These you do eat of all that are in the waters, any one of that has fins and scales in the waters, in the seas or in the rivers, that you do eat. But all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, all that moves in the waters, or any living being which is in the waters, they are an abomination to you. They are an abomination to you. Of their flesh you do not eat, and their carcasses you abominate. All that have not fins or scales in the waters are an abomination to you.
Stop a minute.
Yep.
Okay, so, Beth, what was it? You remember back you were telling the story that New Jersey, the waters years ago was really filthy.
When I was a kid, the water in the wetlands in particular, I can remember driving along the wetlands in the early 70s when we went camping down there a lot.
Pine Barrens.
In the Pine Barrens, and the wetlands, there was wetlands between the Pine Barrens and the ocean, and the wetlands are the nursery of the ocean. When you go into these bays and things, there's lots of seagrass growing, and when the tide goes out, they go not quite dry, but you can walk out there in water about ankle deep, and when it comes in, it's about chest deep, and so it's very shallow, and there's thousands and thousands of acres of it. And when I was a kid, I would see the clam diggers out there, people out there with the clam rakes raking the clams up that are buried in that sand at the bottom of the wetland when the tide was out. When I got older, I'd say, junior high-ish and up, I remember we would drive along the wetlands going to camp, and there'd be signs everywhere. No clamming, contaminated water. No clamming, contaminated water. And the water was full of mercury and just all kinds of really bad stuff. And what happened was we were always putting pollutants and stuff into the water. We always have been, and we always will be. But people were over clamming and getting the oysters and the clams out of the water. And the oysters and the clams are the natural
Filters.
water filters. I don't know if you've ever seen the meme on Facebook where they have the picture of the two fish tanks, and the water's really dirty in one, and the water's really clean in one. And one of the fish tanks has clams in it, or oysters, I can't remember. And the other one doesn't. And they said within 24 hours, we put these tanks were the same, and then we put clams in this one, and within 24 hours, that water was clean and clear. And so what was happening was that it was being over, the commercial fisheries were coming in and all, and pulling out all the clams and the oysters,
Things we're not supposed to eat.
things that we're not supposed to eat. So what does that tell you about wanting to eat that stuff? If they're cleaning all that crud out of the water, that stuff is staying in that flesh. It's not going back out. And that stuff is staying in that flesh, and people are eating that. And so, and it's not just the dirty, it's not just recycling the fish poo and stuff like that. It's deadly toxins that they are absorbing in their bodies and clearing out of the water so that wildlife can live and so that we can use the water safely. And so it's very interesting to me as a kid growing up. Now, when we went back to New Jersey, we drove down that way and we went across one of those estuaries
Not food. It's not food. Now, when we talk to our brothers and sisters, they say, well, but Jesus made all food clean. Well, hold on. All food's already clean.
You do make all food clean.
Yeah. I mean, the argument is,
Not everything's food.
That's right.
exactly, pig's not food.
Rocks aren't food either.
Yeah. Okay. Go.
Oh, he started for you.
Oh, okay, where we at?
Verse 13.
Chapter 11, verse 13.
These shall you abominate from among the birds. They may not be eaten. They are an abomination. The Nesher, the Peres, the Azaniah, the Da, and the Ayah, according to its kind. Every Arab, according to its kind. The Basyana, the Tachmos, the Shekaf, and the Nets, according to its kind. The Koz, the Shelach, and its Yenshnuv. Wow.
Aren't you glad you got this one?
No, I wish I had the TLV.
Wait, what verse are you at? I'm so.
He's on 17.
I think he's on,
Okay.
just starting 18.
We're on
Yeah.
18 now.
I'm trying to find that word.
It's Yenshuf.
Yanshu.
Yanshuf.
You're sitting there, you can help me out, you know.
Hey, you not learn from me. I just
Fisher owl and the great owl and the wild
I just plow right through it, and nobody knows I don't know it.
Plow through like you know what you're doing. Nobody else will know the difference because they don't either.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just mumble jumble some stuff.
And they'll think you're so smart. Confident.
The
Works
Teshimas,
me.
the Kaz, and the Rachem, the Kasidah, the Anaphag, according to its kind, the Dukifas, and the Atalef. Every flying, teeming creature that walks on 4 legs, and it is an abomination to you. Only this may you eat from among all flying, teeming creatures that walk on 4 legs. One that has jumping legs above its legs. What?
So, locusts, this is the determination for those of you who we know they ate locusts in the Bible. If you look at a locust versus a cricket, when they're sitting in a resting position, the cricket's knees don't go up above the back of its body.
Okay.
The locust, when it's in a resting position, its knees go above the back of its body. And that's how you can determine, and like the katydid, that's how you can determine which one is edible and which one is not. If
Wait,
the knees
so
go up
crickets
above-
aren't clean? Crickets aren't clean? Because I thought they were.
No.
Crickets and grasshoppers are.
Crickets and, yeah. So you just have to look at the knees when it's at rest. If its knees go up above his body,
Okay.
that one's clean.
Okay.
Cicadas don't though.
The
No,
cicada is
cicadas
the
aren't
same.
even in an edible family.
Yeah.
They're the same
But like
thing
the
as
crickets, the katydids, the locusts, they're all kind of in the same family, but some of them are not clean.
Okay, gotcha.
So you have to look at where the knees are when it's resting. So you can have all mine, Mary.
Okay.
That has jumping legs above its legs, with which to spring upon the earth. You may eat these from among them. The arbe, according to its kind, the salam, according to its kind, the chargal, according to its kind, and the chagav, according to its kind. Every flying teeming that has 4 legs, it is an abomination to you. You become contaminated through the following. Anyone who touches their carcass becomes contaminated until the evening. Anyone who carries their carcass shall immerse his clothing and be contaminated until evening. Every animal that has split hooves that are not completely split or does not chew its cud, they are contaminated to you. Whoever touches them becomes contaminated. And everyone that walks on its paws, among all animals that walk on 4 legs, they are contaminated to you. Whoever touches their carcass shall be contaminated until the evening. One who carries their carcass shall immerse his clothing and be contaminated until the evening. They are contaminated to you.
Stop a minute. Now, So a carcass is a dead,
Didn't die naturally, right?
well,
Or a carcass is a dead animal.
right, dead animal. Now, if you got a lamb and it died on its own, we're not even allowed to eat that because, it died on its own. But if you slaughter it, that's a different situation. But now pig, you slaughter a pig regardless, it's a carcass, unclean, we're not to eat it. So we touch a dead pig and we're unclean until evening. Now, being unclean is not a sin, it's just you're unclean until evening. But now what?
Do bugs have carcasses?
I'm
Like
s-
a fly. Like if you kill a fly,
Well, we're going to talk about that in just a second because that's where we're getting in some dangerous areas today. So first of all, let's get back to carcass and non-carcass. Can you wear a mink coat to the temple?
yes,
Can you wear pig leather to the temple?
yes.
What's the difference between a carcass and leather? It's an animal skin.
Right out. One's
It's-
putrid and death on
it's-
it. The other one is turned into something usable.
And the way the rabbis explain it, it has no moisture. Now, I'm not talking about just leather getting wet. I'm talking about the moisture that was in when the animal dried. Right.
It's bodily fluids.
But once that moisture is gone and it's been tanned, now it's become a hide. So you'll see, and this is always Messianic, so you never see Jews say this, but Messianic say, well, I can't touch that football. It's a pigskin. I'll be unclean. Well, okay, you don't know what you're talking about, first of all. I mean, they don't. I see that over and over again, and they have no idea what they're even talking about because we're all unclean. None of us can go to the temple until we're purified with the red heifer.
So I know there's not a physical temple right now, but we come to the Most High in prayer, and I'm like, and Yeshua's supposed to be our mediator. But what about a bunch of these people who are still like eating pork? Can they come
Well,
moment with the Most High? Like,
okay. But remember what I said earlier. The problem with the church today, they're not even keeping the Torah that they once understood. And they've always ate pork and stuff like that. But Torah is mainly about what? Pure religion before God is taking care of widows and orphans. There's going to be cultures that always eat things that's unclean. But if they don't mess up in other areas, I'm not judging them, is what I'm trying to say. So, but, where was I going with this? Well, what's ironic is when you see, got a big plate of ham and you're giving thanks for that. Because in Judaism, your table is actually an altar. And you're bringing pork up on that altar, and it's kind of a weird thought. But,
that's kind of where I was like,
The Father's drawing people into himself. Once they realize what they're doing is wrong, then they can make an asham offering for guilt of the past that now they've realized was wrong. But, you can only do that now. Even back then, you can only do it through repentance and turning away from it. So, they're not even, if they're still doing those things, they're not even at step one yet of understanding what the Father wants from his children. So, that's how I would look at it.
but on the flip side, they're not going down that road. They're not going down the Torah road. The main thing for them outside, if they're not going down this road of Torah, not understanding clean and unclean and all that, the main thing for them is just treat people good. That's the key for
They all
everything.
want to be the bride, but they don't want any of the responsibilities that come with it. So,
The best thing for you to do is explain to them if you can. And here's the problem: most people can't hear if God hadn't opened their ears. But if somebody wants to be the bride, then you're right. They have to walk in Torah.
they all want to be the bride. They want to talk about being it, but then they don't,
What's the best they can do? They can be a guest at the wedding. And that's not a bad deal. But they're not the bride. And so that's the best way to make that argument. But let's talk about something that Beth read about this weekend that made me sick. And okay, so
There's a big plant they're building up there in Rogers.
okay, this is disgusting. I mean, this is getting so far out of hand. 2 years ago, it was lab-grown beef, and OU certified lab-grown beef. Now, I'm not sure. I'm not going lab-grown beef. I can't do that. But Beth sent a email to OU Orthodox Kosher and asked them, Orthodox Union, and ask them if they accept bug protein, because what they're doing, they grow everything from, what are they, crickets and
Crickets and mealworms are the two main because they're the
and grubs?
that reproduce.
There's
Well,
grubs.
mealworms, grubs, yeah. Because they're the cheapest to produce, easiest to grow, and grow
And
What
then
they're doing is they're drying it and they're making flour out of it.
they're
And
grinding
they're
them.
saying that there are companies that have been allowed to use up to 20% of it in their flours without labeling them.
Now, hold on. Now, FDA has always said, you know, when they're raising, you've got grains or whatever, you're going to have a few little bugs in there, and that passes. We're not talking about that. We're talking 10 to 20% of your bread. That's a lot.
Jews won't even eat broccoli because so many bugs get stuck in the thing, they won't even touch it.
But it's a new world, and the thing that I'm concerned about is, the reason I contacted the OU is because they go to the factories and they inspect and they see everything that's going into the food. So that even if it's not on the label, the OU knows it's there if they have certified the food clean kosher. If they put their little label on it, you know, any of the kosher groups, if they put their little label on it, they know everything that's in there. And that's why I wanted to ask them specifically, because I'll be honest, when I'm buying flour now, or when I'm buying, you know, there are things that I haven't always really worried about having the kosher label on it because it's a whole food. But now that's not necessarily true anymore, because you've got lab-printed beef, and you've got, we're still not sure what to do about meat, but you've got flours and things now, especially they said one of the gluten-free flours are a big one that they're gonna start incorporating it in because it adds flavor.
Okay, but hold on. Now, but watch this.
And it adds protein, and it's cheap protein for the manufacturer.
But they're doing it intentionally. They're killing off. All of a sudden now you got all these billions and billions of chickens now that got bird flu. You got all these cattle that got a bird flu. They're trying to do away with cattle. They're trying to force you. I don't know who's in charge of this or all the conspiracies, but it's not a conspiracy. It's real. Whoever's doing this, behind all this, is one making all the money off of these places where they're growing all this crap. And they're going to feed us the crap while
Right now, its biggest use is in animal feed. And I don't have a problem with that because it goes through the animal and it's, you know, animals eat bugs.
right.
And people eat these things in other countries without batting an eyelash. But we have a dietary directive from our God that says not to. And so we need to know, we need to find
We can't eat grubs.
if it's in our food or not, whether it's on the label or not. Now, some
That's
people
why they're
will
doing
say,
it,
well,
though.
if it's not on the label, then you're
Just
not
make us on,
responsible.
you
And
know,
may or may not be true, but if we know
lower our vibration,
that if
whatever,
they have it, they're
whatever
doing
reason
it,
you are.
then we do know. And so we have, you know, it's a big
We're,
issue right now.
we're trying to figure out.
Get bigger.
We're trying to, because OU, there was, what was that one, it had like a 247, it almost sounded like a street highway number, but it was the one that was going out in California made from, it was a, yeah, it was some kind of, it was made from kidneys of aborted babies, and they use that for some kind of a
What it's in, or you won't be able to buy nothing from the
taste enhancer. But OU certified that. They didn't allow that. I remember it made me furious. And OU said you can use that. And I was like, no.
And that's why I'm asking them about the bug protein, because I don't know if, for example,
It's called HEK something.
kosher, I can get flowers marked kosher and they're not going to have the bugs in it, because that may not be the case. Because they've certified other things that we've gone, oh my gosh.
They've certified lab-grown meat. They've certified the HEK.
Okay, I'm going to eat only stuff made of whole food, so I'm not going to buy a cake anymore. I'm going to buy my flour and make it all from scratch. But if your flour may be contaminated. So I mean, how do we eat? And so it gets very.
no weapon formed against me can harm me. Because there ain't nothing out there. There's
I
nothing
know.
you go to Kroger or Walmart and buy
I
that
agree.
doesn't have evil in it. That
I
the
agree.
enemy's
Even though if
trying
you go
to
to places
use.
like Whole Foods or
Because that's the
Sprouts or
enemy's
something, it's still
Yeah.
gonna be,
I watched these.
you know, coming from farms that Bill Gates owns, you know, it's like.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you first.
So, this is how I feel. We're in Egypt. We're probably going to need Egyptian food. And then when we get taken out of Egypt, we'll eat clean food.
Yeah.
And we do our best to eat as clean as possible while we're in Egypt.
And like the Jews in the camps, they didn't have a choice.
Exactly.
I watched this group of scientists all over the. I watched this group of scientists all over the country that were testing chemtrails and they sprayed them out, and they all would take these swabs and they'd go put them in their little machine, and every one of them came up with red blood cells in it. So they're literally spraying the plasma that people are probably going and donating and just like blasting us with it. Like whatever reason y'all just don't touch these things and don't eat them and don't put them in you, like whatever it does to us, the enemy knows that, and he's just blasting it everywhere, hoping to keep all of us at whether it's unclean or he knows it's like it's spiritually like crippling
Okay.
people's mind. I don't know what it does, but
Okay, what verse we on?
We're on 29.
21,
29.
29. Go.
These are the contaminated ones to you among the teeming animals that teem upon the earth. The Kholed, the Akbar, the Tazav, according to its kind, the Anaka, the Koat, and the Litia, and the Komet, and the Tinshimis. Only these are contaminated to you among the teeming animals. Anyone who touches them when they are dead shall be contaminated until evening. And when they are dead, anything upon which a part of them will fall, anything upon which part of them will fall shall become contaminated, whether it is a wooden utensil, a garment, leather, or sackcloth. Any utensil with which work is done shall be brought into the water and remain contaminated until evening, and then become cleansed. Any earthenware utensil into whose interior one of them will fall, everything in it shall become contaminated, and you shall break it. Of any food that is edible, upon which water comes, shall be contaminated. Any beverage that can be drunk, in any vessel, shall be contaminated. Anything upon which part of their carcass may fall shall be contaminated. An oven or a stove shall be smashed. They are contaminated, and they shall remain contaminated to you. Only a spring or a cistern, a gathering of water, shall remain pure. But one who touches their carcass shall become contaminated. And if their carcass will fall upon any edible seed that has been planted, it remains pure. But if water has been placed upon a seed, then their carcass falls upon it, it is contaminated to you. If an animal that you may eat has died, one who touches its carcass shall become contaminated until evening. And one who eats from its carcass shall immerse his clothing and remain contaminated until evening. And one who carries its carcass shall immerse his clothing and remain contaminated until evening. Every teeming creature that teems upon the ground, it is an abomination, and shall not be eaten. Everything that creeps on its belly, and everything that walks on 4 legs, up to those with numerous legs, among all the teeming things that teem upon the earth, you may not eat. You may not eat them, for they are an abomination. Do not make your souls abominable by means of any teeming thing. Do not contaminate yourself through them, lest you become contaminated through them. For I am Hashem, your Elohim. You shall sanctify yourself, and you will be holy, for I am holy. And you shall not contaminate your souls through any teeming thing that creeps on the earth. For I am Hashem, who elevates you from the land of Egypt to be an Elohim unto you. You shall be holy, for I am holy. This is the law of the animal, the bird, every living creature that swarms in the water, and for every creature that teems on the ground, to distinguish between the contaminated and the pure, and between the creatures that may be eaten and the creatures that may not be eaten.
Okey-doke.
So I think it's very interesting that we're talking about being abominable, clean and unclean. It has to do with temple worship, but I mean he's very clear where it says like be holy basically like, don't even, like, because he was just saying, like, we can't even go out to eat. Like, wherever we go out to eat, like, they've already cooked pork on that range. They've already cooked whatever on that range.
CJ's doesn't cook pork on their range.
That's good.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. It's on their menu.
They do have bacon, yeah. I saw it on all the burgers the other day. I didn't think they did either, but I saw it lined
Yeah,
up.
I was looking at their menu. I was like, oh, bacon is an add-on now. Maybe it's something new, but they do.
Yeah, because they did it.
Who?
Yeah, I saw
CJ's?
CJ's
Oh.
Butcher Boy.
I was like,
But I mean, that's why
They've always
Jewish
done
people,
bacon.
they don't eat out at any restaurant that serves anything unclean. They have to kosher serve